Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March 27th meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. I'd like to call us to order. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items. If you have a phone with you, please silence or turn it off. If you are here to speak on an item and are not the applicant, please fill out one of the forms available outside and provide it to Jared or Elena down here, our staff. When your item is to be heard, you'll be called to the podium. Please come to the podium and give your name and address for the record. You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you're here to speak on an item with a large group of people, we encourage you to elect a representative to share your group's concerns. And in that instance, we'll give some additional time, consider some additional time for that. Where several speakers are to be heard on the same item, please do your best to limit the comments to concerns that we haven't heard yet. We're just trying to limit the extensive and repetitious comments. Please direct all your comments and questions to the commission, and if needed, we'll ask the applicant or staff to respond. Finally, we just appreciate everyone's presence here today and the time that you took away from your obligations, and then we ask for your assistance in upholding the decorum of the meeting, and we kindly ask you not to speak from the gallery, to come to the podium. So with that, we'll move on to our first item, which is receipt of the minutes. I have a motion for the minutes of the March 13th meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to receive the minutes from March 13th, 2025.
A motion to receive the minutes. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. And the minutes are received. Item 3 is continuance requests. We'll start with uncontested requests.
We have several. Item 15, case number C7719, request to defer to April 10th. Item 16, case C7721, defer to April 10th. Item 17, PUD 2057, defer to April 10th. Item 18, PUD 2059, defer to April 10th. Item 19, PUD 2061, defer to April 10th. Item 20, case C7692, defer to April 24th. Item 21, case PC 10950, defer to April 24th. Item 22, case SPUD 1716, defer to April 24th. And item 23, case C7410 has been withdrawn.
I'll just quickly ask if there's anyone here to be heard on any of those items. All right, seeing none, I just need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the continuance requests, uncontested requests as read.
We have a motion to approve the new requests. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. All right, and the new requests are approved, or uncontested requests are approved. Next, we have new requests.
Item 10 is case number SPUD 1675, request to defer to July 24th.
Is the applicant present for this one? If you could you please come up and talk a little bit about your reason for the deferral?
A few years ago, some veterinary surgeons approached me about wanting to have a space to perform surgery, and they needed a CT scanner to be able to do it. We looked at different options. It wouldn't fit in my building, so we came up with the idea of a mobile medical unit, which is the same that Blue Pearl Veterinary Specialty Services has. I called the city at the time and said, is there any problem with me parking this at my location? And at the time they said, nope, it's private property, it's fine. And I was like, well, it's that easy. And so I spoke to both neighbors. They were fine with it. And the neighbor on the west side, I was concerned that people would end up driving over the curb onto his property. So I talked to him, and he gave me permission to put some ramps so that people could drive over if they needed to. And that went on for a couple of years, just fine. And then he called me very upset one day that people were driving over it, and I said, well, I can certainly let our team know not to do that anymore. We put up signs. I talked to him about placing a fence, but ultimately he wanted the trailer moved, and I said, well, it's under contract. We've spent all this money to update the electrical. It was always going to be temporary, but I can't move it yet. These surgeons can't move out yet. And so I went ahead and pursued the rezoning when I learned that it wasn't actually appropriate to be there. Tried to do everything I could to have it there. So I put this forward, but as this has gone on, talking to the neighbor, he's had more things that he's upset about the trailer. The sound from the trailer, from the HVAC system, some lighting around it, things I've done to correct. I've had somebody out to come work on it. I've had lighting put up. I put railroad ties up because he wasn't okay with the fence. But ultimately he said he just wants the trailer moved. And so I don't think having the trailer there is something he's going to be okay with. So I've been working on trying to move the trailer to another location. It's just a very difficult thing to move quickly. So we're actively building another location to move it to. And I thought it was going to be finished by this point, which is why I had moved it to this date. But construction, doing what construction does, they're telling me it probably won't be finished until June. So I'm requesting to move it in the event that I can't get that done. My goal is to move it to be a good neighbor and make the neighbor happy. I'm just trying to find the best way to get this solved. So that's my reason for the request.
Understand it, and we can appreciate that. So you're looking at constructing a new location?
Yes.
Okay, so then this application would just go away?
Yes. If I
Okay.
can get it moved, then I'll just pull this. I won't need to ask for a continuance again. It's just if I can't get it done and I have to pursue this, I anticipate that I will have construction done by that point. So that's the reason for it.
I think one of the things that we're looking at is, this came to us back in October, and I can certainly understand all the challenges that you've had to encounter along the way, but I also understand that code enforcement has put a pause on any kind of action, and we just want to make sure that further delay isn't basically extending that is kind of a workaround to avoid any action. So that's one of the things I think that we're considering. So, I don't know, Commissioner Powers, this is your ward.
It is. And
Do you have any thoughts?
yeah, I think this is kind of a difficult situation. I don't quite understand how it was communicated, if it was, that this would be okay. It's really parked in a driveway. It is really right next to residential uses on the west. If I were living there, it would be very problematic for me. And while I was okay to have it continued a couple of times to get this problem solved, and while I'm equally aware that, construction has its own life and you can't always control it, I think July is kind of a big ask here, frankly.
Well, and I mean, it sounds to me like come July, if this other site is complete, then this application goes away. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of...
But in the meantime, it's still there.
Right, how do we deal with it in the meantime?
And it is literally a mobile unit, It can be.
There's quite a bit more hardscape on this commercial, or this property, aside from where that RV's parked. I mean, have you discussed moving it over to the other part of your parking lot, perhaps?
We did look into that. The problem was that from what I was told, that there was nowhere on the property I could put it that zoning wouldn't have a problem with, which is, they told me that the only option I had was to try to pursue rezoning it, so I just filled out the application and did that, and then realizing the neighbor was never gonna be okay with anything that I was doing, I was like, okay, I've gotta get this off of here, because, if he's not, it was always meant to be temporary, but we knew it was gonna be 2 to 3 years, and we're getting close to that timeline, so that is what we talked about, and I do wanna honor what we talked about with him in the beginning. It's just taking me a little longer than I had hoped with all the construction problems I've had.
So I'd just like to interject. The timeline would be that if we heard it today, pass or fail, it's still 2 more months probably before it went to council. So by the time this all got done, it'd be really close to being able to move anyways.
I agree. And-
So
and-
I'd like to hear it today.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea.
Okay.
And Dan, to your comments, yeah, when this case first came to us, I went out and looked at the site, and even though it looks like there's more room there, there's really not. It's going to have to be moved off-site, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I think we just need a motion for the deferral request, which sounds to me like is a denial.
I think we're just going to hear it in
Yeah.
order, aren't
Yep.
we?
Yes. Yeah.
So do we really need to make a motion to do that? Somebody tell me.
We don't have, okay. All right. That sounds to me like we'll just hear it, so we don't have to grant the request. We'll just move on, and we'll hear it in order. So then we'll move on to item 4, which is public hearings and the consent docket.
Item 1 is case C-7723, final plat of Mustang Lake, Section 1, located south of Southwest 44th Street and west of South County Line Road. Item 2 is case C-7724, final plat of Fireside Creek, Section 2, located north of Southwest 29th Street and west of South Mustang Road. And finally, item 3, case C-7725, final plat of Highland Point, Phase 2, located south of West Memorial Road and east of North May Avenue.
All right. Anyone wishing to be heard on any of the consent docket items? All right, seeing none, I just need a motion.
With that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent docket.
We'll have a motion to approve the consent docket. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. And the consent docket is approved. We're on to item 4, and items to be heard individually. Butler?
Item 4 is case C-7722, final plat of Ledgestone Landing. This is located north of Southwest 59th Street and east of South Mustang Road.
We have an applicant present.
Mitchell Mertz with Cedar Creek, representing the applicant. We're here to present 5 lots. We've been working with city staff on addressing all the TEs that we agree with. Yes, we are aware of some of the concerns about the rezoning, which we are not here to do today. This is not a request for rezoning, and we have no plans on asking for apartments. We are just here to plat 5 lots, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Meek, this is Ward 3.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We do have the updated exhibit, do you know, Jared? We did? Okay. All right, so they're okay with all the TEs and a rezone. I do agree that a rezoning would be required if there were any R4 uses. I have studied that it does follow the plat, conforms with the PUD 265. And do we have people signed up to speak?
Yes, I have 2.
Okay, I'd like to hear from them first.
Okay. Mr. Jeffrey Wolf?
But as they're coming to speak and as we listen to our neighbors,
Right.
just want to be clear.
Right.
This application says multifamily, but that is not possible, correct? So there will be no multifamily if the Planning Commission votes to approve this today.
They would have to come rezone like any other zoning case, yes.
Okay, just want to be clear. There will not be multifamily here if this is approved. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
My name is Jeffrey Wolf. I live at 5708 Ledgestone Drive, backed up to the multifamily proposal lot, or plat. I just came today to show opposition to the platting, and because we had figured it for being zoned as commercial and expected it to stay that way. I know that this is not zoning, but I did want to state that if it does go to zoning, we will try and oppose that also. So I don't want to waste any more of your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
I'm sorry, can I ask you a question, please? Is there something about the actual plating that is problematic for you?
Could you come back to the mic, please? I want to make sure everyone on YouTube.
Yes, as far as the platting, due to the fact that we just don't prefer to have multifamily backed up to our single-family homes, especially with the intersection there being Mustang and 59th Street. It is the main thoroughfare into Mustang.
But now, to be clear, what we're doing today doesn't permit multifamily to be built there.
Okay.
So is there something about the way that the plat is set out for the uses that are contemplated that's problematic for you?
No, not the way it's actually platted. It's just the fact that they listed it as that lot being multifamily.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Is it James Warburton?
Hi, James Warburton. I live on Ledgestone Drive as well, and I'm not going to take too much time because I'm also aware that we're not rezoning today. But I represent kind of the other end of the street, and we've all visited, and we're kind of on the same page as our neighbor here as well. We're going to oppose the multifamily because it was not what we read and understood to be the zone when we bought our homes. So if that is rezoned, it would be damaging to our property value and also our privacy. So I do want to mention that we would like some relief on this diagram. It was not very clear on the notice that we received. It didn't explain which lots. It mentioned the multifamily, so we have to talk about that, but it didn't mention which lots were likely to be rezoned. So we want to know which lot is going to be rezoned. I think that's a fair thing to ask so that we can get prepared on our end if that does occur.
Okay. We can ask the applicant to respond if there are any plans to come back with a rezoning. Please speak at the mic.
As of right now, there are no plans to do any rezoning. We just don't have any plans to rezone at this moment. Yeah.
Okay. So I will just point out for the residents, if a rezoning application is submitted, it gets noticed just like the preliminary plat, so you'll receive notice at the time of a rezoning application.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Meek, that's all I had signed up to
Okay,
speak.
yes, and like I had said earlier, I believe that that it does conform, the final plat of Ledgestone Landing does conform to the PUD 265, and with that, and knowing that rezoning would be required for any R4 uses, I'd like to move to approve C7722.
Subject to the technical evaluations?
Yes, sir, with the 3 TEs.
Okay. We have a motion to recommend or to approve item C7722. That's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
I guess I have something that I would like to say about this particular one, because this is something we've looked at several times, and it's been back and forth, and the PUD was fairly rigorously negotiated, I would say. These kinds of layouts sometimes are a way to provide the justification for a lesser use. For instance, if somebody wanted to rezone Lot 1 and put multifamily in there, later, then it's like, well, we've got all this commercial, there's a highway, this is step down. I want to be really clear that this is not something that I'm going to look at favorably later if it comes back to us for multifamily after all that has been done to get it where it is now. So just FYI.
Okay, item 5.
Item 5 is PUD 2033-SP01, application for a specific plan pursuant to the approval of PUD 2033 located at 6401 Shiloh Boulevard.
Good afternoon, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street, here on behalf of the applicant. This is one that was actually just approved this January, you may recall. There was some very specific language added as it relates to landscaping that if you've looked through your packet, you will undoubtedly see. The application before you complies with the PUD. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Meek, this is your ward again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have anyone signed up for this one?
I do not.
Okay. I do remember the neighborhood meeting and the previous rezoning. I did, looking at it, it looks to completely conform with what was originally allowed, and unless any other commissioners have any other comments, I'd like to make a recommendation to move to approve of PUD 2033-SP01.
We have a motion to approve the specific plan, and I'll just note for the record that staff's review of the specific plan for the development indicates the proposal is consistent with PUD 2033 Master Design Statement and the Master Development Plan. That item has been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Fact that we need to re-examine issues around notification,
I think,
specific plans,
I think maybe let's hold that for
just
individual.
generally speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, I think it is something that we need to ask staff to give us a little bit of a briefing and update and what would really be involved in that. I understand we have a system that works the way it works now, but it doesn't seem to be working all that well.
We can revisit that at the end of the meeting with comments.
Okay.
Commissioner comments?
Thank you.
That item is approved. Item 7,
Are we on 6?
excuse me, item 6.
Item 6 is case PC 10966, application to rezone 1810 North MacArthur Boulevard from R1 and SPUD 458 to R2.
Hello, my name is Brady Ganiabadi. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. So this is just a straight rezone application. Used to be R1. Part of the property that we're rezoning was a SPUD as well. The intent of it is to make sure some of that dead space that was included in the SPUD that's part of the commercial property could be developed into residential.
Okay, Commissioner Powers, this is Ward 2.
Is there anybody signed up to speak on this item?
I don't have anyone signed up.
I'm J.R. Hefner. My family owns 1820 North MacArthur, which is due north of the subject area. I think the question that we have, as well as the other people surrounding, is the value of these homes. We already have a very, it is a homeless haven. Whenever a building gets abandoned, 300 to 400 people move in. They just tore down Outdoor America, so they're moving down the street. So all we want to know is, we want to improve the value. So I support great duplexes, but I just want to make sure that, you know, are these Section 8 houses? That there's already 2 abandoned R4 apartment units that are so bad that they have to hire 24-hour security, and the city told them they would tear it down because of the homeless population. So that's my question.
Okay.
What are we looking at?
And the applicant is certainly able to respond to that if you'd like to. One thing that from a commission, we look at land uses, we don't look at the value of
I understand.
residences. So that's something that's a little bit beyond our purview. If the applicant wants to provide that information, he's more than welcome to. But
SPUD, so that's part of basically taking unused space and creating homes. Is that correct?
A SPUD is a way that takes, it's able, we use SPUDs to protect the surrounding properties more than just straight zoning. So we have the ability to put in other requirements like landscape buffers and things of that nature, lighting requirements that helps protect surrounding properties from this use
Appropriate.
to basically enhance the project.
So that's part of the proposal. We're rezoning this. I'm assuming there's going to be a plat that's presented that has to be approved. Is that correct? No.
SPUDs don't have to be platted.
If he rezones it, it's just getting a permit, right?
This is a straight rezoning request. It's not an SPUD.
Right.
So it is a request to change the zoning from R1 and a little bit of the original commercial spot along MacArthur to R2. That's it.
Okay.
Which would be platted though, right? As R2.
It would have to be like the other plats we saw today?
Help me, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Welch, Planning Department. Currently, the site, like they said, is zoned for single-family residential, and then the little west part of it zoned for commercial. This request would be rezoning it to R2, which allows single-family or two-family attached, so duplexes. They would have to come back later for the subdivision design, which is the platting process. So we would expect them to put a street south of that existing building. We're assuming a cul-de-sac and duplex lots in there.
And if you're within 300 feet, you'll get notice of that platting process.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Sure.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks for the promotion, too. Yeah, I question it. Well, I think that this is an appropriate use of this land. I think it will be a positive thing to see something else done with this vacant space. And, you know, in R2, you know, straight zoning is not a concern for me here. So anybody else have anything else they want to contribute or ask? Or if not, then I'll move for approval of item number 6, PC 10966.
We have a motion from Commissioner Powers to recommend approval to City Council, PC 10966. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. That item is recommended for approval. Now we are at item 7.
This is PUD 2054, application to rezone 8612 South Walker Avenue from R1 to PUD 2054.
Once again, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street, here on behalf of the applicant, who's also here with us. This was an item that was deferred from the previous setting to allow a meeting to take place, which happened this week. Ms. Turner and Mr. Newman were able to meet with some of the neighbors. This is a development that will allow both duplex and some commercial along Walker. There are no TEs, however, after meeting with the neighbors, it's my understanding that there is some language we need to add as a TE to section 9.4, specifically adding the words, screening shall not be required along the east PUD boundary line and shall not be required along the south PUD boundary line where adjacent to common area as depicted on Exhibit B. So we would propose to add that as TE1.
Okay.
Do we have anyone signed up on that?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak on this.
Okay. We did meet with the neighbors, and that was actually a request from the two neighbors that were adjacent to the common areas to not have a site-proof fence, so I'm perfectly fine with that. Seems like the appropriate infill for this area, so unless someone has an objection, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve PUD 2054, or recommend approval to council.
Subject to this?
Subject to the TE as written into the record, read into the record.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Newman to recommend approval to City Council, PUD 2054. That's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
It's recommended for approval. Item 8.
This is PUD 2058, application to rezone 9520 Northeast 150th Street from AA.
David Box, 525 Northwest 11th, here on behalf of the applicant. This is a PUD that would allow for the division of 3 lots, each of which would be a minimum of 1.9 acres in size. It is worth noting when you see PUD 1860 on your screen, that PUD has an RA base that allows lots down to 3/4 of an acre. Again, each of our 3 lots will be approximately 2 acres in size. One TE that we agree to. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Thank you. I have already met with the applicant. It definitely seems appropriate. I think this lot size is bigger than the ones next door, so we've received no protests, and I'm in support.
Okay.
Ready to make a motion if there's no questions? Okay, I move to recommend approval of PUD 2058 to City Council.
We have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to recommend the item to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
That item is recommended for approval. Item 9.
This is PUD 2060, application to rezone 7303 South Anderson Road from PUD 1794.
Good afternoon, Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the application. This is a PUD that simply changes the side lot lines. This was originally set up and platted with one builder. The developer has shifted gears. Other builders have moved in. They need a wider footprint, so we're here redoing the PUD just to allow for a different side yard. We'd be happy to answer any questions and ask for your approval.
Commissioner Privet, this is your ward.
Yes, it is. I guess this is really just a setback change, really.
Just side yard.
Keeping
That's it.
from having to go to Board of Adjustment and just amending the PUD instead. Okay, yeah, I'm okay with it. How much was the overall, in Board of Adjustment fashion, how much was the overall variance?
I believe it started off at 25 and it's now 15.
Okay, so 10 feet, probably a little too much for you guys. No, but yeah, I'm good with it, so. Anybody signed up by chance?
No, I do not have anyone signed up.
I'll move to recommend approval of PUD 2060.
We have a motion from Commissioner Privet to recommend approval of the item to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. That item is recommended for approval. All right, item 10.
This is SPUD 1675, application to rezone 2821 Northwest 57th Street from C1.
It's me again.
Hello again.
So I think you heard my reasoning for why I need the trailer there. Unfortunately, there's nowhere else to move it. It's desperately needed for the use of caring for our patients. We can't do our work without it. While I am actively looking for another location, I do need to have it still there. And so I'd like to have it rezoned to be allowed to have the trailer there until I do move it at a later date.
Okay. Commissioner Powers, you want to lead our discussion?
Is there anybody signed up to speak on this item?
No.
You know, I would like to compliment the applicant for, reaching out to her neighbors and trying to work through these issues on her own. But I will have to say that just from the first time that I visited this site, this just seems like a completely inappropriate use here. There's not any place else on the site really for it to go that wouldn't just as much impact surrounding neighbors. And so I just can't support it. I'm sorry. I'm hoping that the time that it will take for this to work through the process will get your construction done and get you past this. But there's no way that this sort of temporary, recreational vehicle type surgical center needs to be parked in a driveway next to this building. It's just not appropriate. I can't support it. Sorry. I mean,
I wouldn't have put it there. I thought it was okay. If I had known, I never would have gone through all of this process. I just kind of got stuck with where I'm at.
I'm sure. Yeah, and being a frequent user of animal emergency services, I can tell you it's a needed thing, but this is just not the right place for it. So, anybody else have anything they want to contribute? If not, I'm going to move to deny item number 10, SPUD 16. Is it 1675?
Yes. So I have a motion from Commissioner Powers to recommend denial of SPUD 1675. That's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. I'll just remind everyone that a vote yes is a vote to deny the recommendation. All right, and that item is unanimous, so it'll go forward to City Council. Thank you. Item 11.
This is SPUD 1695, application to rezone 19301 Lutheran Road from AA.
David Box, 525 Northwest 11th. This is an item that was deferred last time as well. If you recall, no written protests have been submitted, but a few people did show up, so we deferred it. A few of the people that I gave my contact information to reached out, and so Ms. Turner, who's been on a community meeting circuit this week, was able to yesterday meet with a few of the folks out there. So what we're asking for, if you go to the site plan, Jared, if you don't mind, is so the southern, there it's, you'd have to like turn your head and imagine, but you can see that Route 66 goes along our south. And if you looked at an aerial on Zoom with me, this area is kind of interesting in that you have Pops, which is just down the road, you have pumpkin patches, you have this kind of like weird grouping of uses out there that attract people because of Route 66. So what he's proposing is keeping the existing building, making that the clubhouse, some outdoor uses like pickleball, basketball, and then pad sites for, think like vintage kind of airline trailers. So again, met with the neighbors. What came from that is a request to add some language. There is one TE we agreed to, but add under the site-proof screening regs, and no less than a 6-foot and no greater than an 8-foot high wall or fence shall be required along the west boundary of the spud. Said wall or fence shall be constructed entirely of stucco, brick, or stone, or on continuous footing, or may be constructed of wood and shall be solid and opaque, which of course is the standard fencing language that we have. So again, one TE that we agreed to, we would ask to add that as TE number 2, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So do we have neighbors signed up to speak today?
I don't have anyone signed up to speak.
No issue, Caitlin, with the uses at all? Okay, well, then I'm good if they're good.
Caitlin's quite convincing.
Right? So, Mr. Chairman, if there's no other questions, I'm going to move to recommend approval of SPUD 1695, subject to the technical evaluations and the additional technical evaluation as read into the record by Mr. Box.
I have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to recommend approval. City Council, that's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. And that is recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Item 12.
This is SPUD 1705, application to rezone 3223 Northwest 178th Street from PUD 1891.
Once again, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th, here on behalf of the applicant who is here with us. So this item has been deferred for quite some time. You can see originally it was scheduled to be heard before you on January 23rd. We became aware of protests predominantly from folks that live south of 178th that live in Rose Creek. So we did defer it. We were able to have a meeting that they hosted at the Rose Creek Clubhouse, perhaps one of the only neighborhood meetings I've seen where there was a bartender. I would encourage all neighborhoods to find a way to make sure there's a bartender at the community meetings. I didn't partake, but it certainly could lighten the mood. So one of the main issues, could you go to the aerial, please, Jared? One of the main issues is the yellow blob that you see before you. Originally in 2005, when this site went from AA to development ready, it was zoned via PUD 1111. Approved on November 1st, 2005, and that was done by my father on behalf of Caliber Development. Caliber bought the entire 640 acres, and they split it off into multiple different tracts, most of which was residential, but then commercial along the west frontage, which is Highway 74, the south frontage, which is 178, and then some of which goes up May Avenue at what would be the northwest corner of 178th and May. At the time, PUD 1111 was very intensive commercial. Almost all C3 uses were allowed. And so when we came in 2022 to rezone this for the townhome development, there was concern about townhomes. We talked a lot about what's allowed now, being commercial, what we're proposing. There's also talk about the pond. Well, at the time in 2022, we were of the belief that that pond was a requirement under the Corps of Engineer 404 regs. We thought it was jurisdictional and connected to a blue line. So we agreed to keep the pond in that we reference it generally under section 9.4 in PUD 1891 by saying screening shall be prohibited along 178th adjacent to existing pond. There was no requirement that the pond be kept. There was a reference to that. Moving forward, as my client has gone forward with the development and there are now paths that have been laid for the townhomes, Johnson Associate, who is the engineer on the project, submitted a formal request to the Corps of Engineers to make a determination on the pond as to whether or not it is in fact jurisdictional. They responded to us that it is not jurisdictional. It's likely that this was just a cow pond when this site was in active farming operation. But it's not connected to a blue line and it's non-jurisdictional, meaning from the Corps of Engineers standpoint, it is not required. The only thing that's required of the developer would be, of course, to meet the drainage ordinance. He is convinced through his engineer that that pond is not necessary to meet the drainage ordinance. Based upon the open space and whatever it is the ordinance requires, they will be in a position to meet that ordinance. And of course, no building permit will be issued short of meeting or exceeding the drainage ordinance. So what we have here now is a small retail pad site along 178th, which is a major arterial, 4 lanes, lots of commercial to our west going towards Portland, a power center to our east going towards May. If you look at the uses we propose, we would submit that it's fairly limited. It's certainly much more limited than what would have been allowed preceding the approval of PUD 1891 under PUD 1111. The other thing we have as it relates to the folks that live in the Grove, which are to the east of us, you have that 100-foot pipeline that runs kind of north-northwest to our east. So we think commercial here is a good thing. You, of course, have heard time and time again from the Deer Creek superintendent, when you have development in this area, we need more commercial, we need more sales tax, we need more ad valorem base. So although small, we still think it's a meaningful addition to those things. So we're happy to answer any questions. There are no technical evaluations.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Noble, this is Ward 8.
Thanks. And I did meet with the applicant and have discussed and also discuss it in the pre-meeting. So if there was anyone signed up to speak, I think we should hear from them first.
Okay, just one, Mr. Colin Walk.
Good afternoon, Commission. Colin Walke, 100 North Broadway, Hall Estill. I represent Rose Creek Property Owners Association. And to be frank, there are a lot of concerns from the neighbors, traffic concerns and those sorts of things that don't necessarily touch on the issues today. But the bigger concern is the confusion that these neighbors have experienced. Because we just heard Mr. Box, whom I have the utmost respect for, talk about how important it is for this area to be developed commercially, how that's the highest and best use. Yet if you go back to the YouTube video from 2022 and you watch that video, the entire argument was how the highest and best use is residential. And so the question that my client has is, where is the commission at? Are they here to simply rubber stamp when somebody says this is the highest and best use, that we agree to not get rid of a pond that both neighborhoods highly objected to, that there were requirements put in, that they would not shield that from view and visibility from the streets? All of these things were negotiated because the highest and best use in 2022 was residential. Juxtapose that to everything you just heard. The commission's job is to determine what is in the best interest of the city as a whole and the residents of that district. It cannot say, a mere 3 years later, after it's been completely undeveloped, that the best and highest use is the complete opposite of what they said 3 years ago. So consequently, Rose Creek would object to this SPUD. Thank you.
Colin, before you leave, I just want to maybe make reference to that point. And the most intense use would be C3 commercial, but the argument for the R4, I think it was R4, but the rezoning was that it would be downzoned to a lesser use, less intense use. And I'll say this, as far as the land itself, the land use for that piece of property, as it's sectioned off from the original PUD, I think, to me, when I drive down the street, retail right there does fit. And so yes, it's a higher use, but it fits the property as a land use.
I can appreciate that, certainly. I mean, and to that point, though, I think that to the extent that we're talking about this being the best use via commercial items, my clients still have concerns about whether or not medical marijuana dispensaries are permitted in there, whether liquor stores are permitted in there, sex shops such as Christie's Toy Box and those sorts of things, and we think that those sorts of items should be prohibited. But at the end of the day, again, I go back to there was a deal 3 years ago, and now we're talking about something totally different, and that seems wholly and radically unfair.
And again, I think, talking to the applicant, we can limit some of the actual retail establishments placed there, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Colin, quick question. So you referenced some specifically, so you kind of got to my question. One, it sounds like there's concerns about liquor store, there's concern about dispensaries, there's concerns about what other C3 uses?
I mean, I think that was about it. Mr. Box might have a few more from our meeting.
We can remove all medical marijuana-related items.
Okay.
Obviously, we have retail, which is the use unit necessary. We don't want to prohibit retail, but we can prohibit medical marijuana.
Cool.
We do not allow the sex shop use, and so it's prohibited just by the lack of its inclusion.
Okay. And so I'll take it as the position of the neighborhood that this should just stay a pond.
Yeah, that's correct. Or develop into a residential area.
So
as
it can
was
be
previously
townhomes, it just
approved.
can't be commercial.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And we need more housing in this city, so we think it would be a good idea.
True.
And I will say, we had 2 multifamily properties that we just rezoned the last few months, and they all came and protested that they wanted commercial. So, it's pretty hard to please everyone. Like I said, you drive down the road and it goes commercial, some housing, commercial, some housing, commercial, some housing. As a land use, to me, it fits to be changed to commercial. So I would be for that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay.
I don't disagree with the commercial use, and considering the context of the section roads and other commercial that's already existing on this street, it doesn't seem out of place. I don't know if it's highest and best, but I don't think it's inappropriate at all.
Anything else from any other commissioners?
Okay, I think we're just ready for a motion.
Do we want to add the TE for the restriction?
For the medical marijuana? That's fine.
They're all here. So that'd be TE1.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. With that, I'll make a motion to approve SPUD 1705 with the addition of TE number 1 for no medical marijuana retail.
Uses. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Noble to recommend approval of SPUD 1705, subject to the technical evaluation that the medical marijuana use shall not be permitted. That's been seconded.
Jeremy.
You need to flip that.
Commissioner Meeks, quick draw today. It's not messing around.
Eleni, can you switch that? I mean, I don't know that it matters, but.
Did you second that, Commissioner Meek? Okay, so it was motioned by Commissioner Noble, seconded by Commissioner Meek. All right, we can fix that afterward. Okay, so everyone, please cast your votes. And that item is recommended for approval. Item 13.
This is SPUD 1720, application to rezone 4759 Northwest 36th Street from SPUD 434.
David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street, here on behalf of the applicant. We are proposing to rezone what is now zoned SPUD 434 into an SPUD that would allow for multifamily, specifically for an extension of the multifamily development that exists immediately to the east. If you look at what SPUD 434 allowed, I'm not sure I've seen this before. This was approved in March of '08. The only thing allowed on that site is parking and dumpsters. The site plan is hand-drawn and just has an arrow that says parking and dumpster. So I'm not sure, Jared, could you show our site plan? What we've attempted to do is to integrate this piece of land with, again, the existing multifamily that exists to the east. We think it's consistent, compatible. It'll be operated by the same folks. There is one TE that we agree to, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, Commissioner Powers, this is Ward 2. I do have one person, yes.
That person.
Okay. Ms. Betty Lee? Okay, well, I can't call who I don't have on my list.
There you go. Thank you. Mr. Box.
All right, please give us your name and address for the
My
record,
name
please.
is Tim Alexander.
Okay.
I live at 3813 North Windsor Avenue, and I'm not elegant. I'm not going to be as professional as that gentleman that was there or this guy. All I can say is that apartment complex that is right there right now presently has caused more chaos to our neighborhood than you can imagine. And if they're wanting to build a little apartment complex right next to my neighbor's fence, they're out of their mind. That place, if you guys would come to our home, your windows you'd feel the rocking of the windows from that apartment complex. They have gunfights. Someone has been killed there. The last thing we need is more of that in our neighborhood. That little space that he's showing you right there, they wouldn't even allow a parking lot to be built because they said the area was too small, but yet they're wanting to put 3 apartments right next to my neighbor's fence. Guys, we can't do it. You wouldn't want them in your neighborhood, nor do we. There's 8 residents from our neighborhood that's protesting this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Lolita Lucas?
Good afternoon. My name is Lolita Lucas, and I live on the corner of Northwest 36 and Windsor Avenue. I occupy that corner. And Tim is correct. We have had so many issues, from the apartments to the point of fighting and knocking down my neighbor's fence, to just a week ago, we had 2 break-ins, and 3 weeks prior, another break-in, and one of the break-ins, the neighbor came home and they were still in their house, and they just jump over the fence and go back to those apartments. Every time, except for one time that I've had to call the police in reference to those apartments, was when the police detectives came to my house and asked, could they please see my cameras, because I have cameras around my house for that very reason, and protective dogs in my yard. I have a daycare, and I am a level 5 star. Also a level 5 for the professional registry and a master teacher. So I have not just myself, my family, my grandchildren, I take care of other people's children. And it's my job to keep them safe, first and foremost. So just the other day, when I was walking to my car to put the kids in to go to 2 schools, because I transport, there was a gentleman standing in my yard, screaming antics, throwing around a stick, then turning around and talking to someone who wasn't there. And then he spotted me. So I just quickly threw the kids in the car and said, hey, put your own seatbelts on, which they did. But, I wouldn't leave until he moved. Now, as I was saying, the only other time that the police came to my house that I didn't call because of people at my fence, people trying to antagonize my dogs, standing there trying to come over my fence, was when the detectives came to my house and asked, can we please see your cameras? And they asked to take my hard drive so that my cameras could catch the person that drove off that killed the person on the stairway. Now, when you stand in my house, you can look out of one of my bedrooms and see in the windows at those apartments. So let's just move them closer so they can look and peer down into our backyards to see what we have and how easy it will be to access if anyone's home or not. This is, first and foremost, a safety issue. I've been in my house for 24 years. I've paid it off. Do I want to move and start over with a mortgage at almost 63 years old? I don't, especially in today's market. And it's not fair. It's just not fair. And it's not fair to me, all my other neighbors who are older than I am, who have kids and grandchildren, they have to endure to be frightened by people who are just kind of doing their own thing, and we have to suffer the consequences. So I say absolutely no to this. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Ms. Lucas. Shelley Standridge? Oh.
My name is Sheila Standridge. I live at 3800 North Windsor Avenue. I have lived there since 1987. Back when they were trying to put in the parking lot, my husband was the one that was the speaker. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, so he can't do this for me. I've had trouble with people from that apartment from probably the last 20 years or more. Jumping my fence, getting in my swimming pool. I finally had to take the pool out. They still try to jump the fence when they're cutting through. They want to cut through. Excuse me. They think it's okay to shoot off fireworks a week before any holiday and continue to shoot them through a week afterwards, and the landlord or whoever doesn't ever do anything about it. It's very frustrating that my house shakes and rattles because they're playing their music so loud. My dogs are scared. My grandkids were scared when they were little. It's just a safety issue. We just can't live like that, and we shouldn't be expected to live that way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Standridge. Jeff Sandusky? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Sandusky. I'm the owner of 3820 North Windsor. I do not want to take your time to reiterate what everyone else has said, but I could say all of the exact same things. The criminal activity, the drug activity, but what hasn't been said is I'd like to really emphasize to this council that the ownership of the current existing property that is there, that we're having the issues with, they do not have a legitimate on-site management that's protecting that property. If you will look at their other properties that they have in the Tulsa area of their ownership of those properties is having all of the exact same issues and the same problems. And what I would hope that you would do is take in consideration the police department's position. They are already overtasked. We have such a significant problem in that 10th Street, Rockwell, Council area. You all are very familiar with that area with the drug infestation. What this is doing is this is taking it and moving it up into the 36th Street area. So please consider my opposition, and please consider all of the facts that what we're dealing with a very long established neighborhood that has been very well cared for in that Windsor Hills area, of placing this and compounding what is a small issue that we already have and making it an even larger issue. Thank you very much for your time today.
All right, thank you. Okay. And then Ms. Lee, did you still wish to speak? Okay.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. I'm Betty Lee. I live at 3800 North Ann Arbor. And you've heard a lot of my neighbors today, so I'm just going to make this really short and sweet for you guys. I just want to add my voice of protest to this rezoning, mainly for the issues of safety, as you've heard, including our neighbor who's run a daycare for several years, and also the potential of lowered property values. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. That's everyone I had signed up to speak. Commissioner Powers, you want to lead us off?
He's had a lot of practice this week with neighborhood outreach, because that's what I'm going to recommend here. We definitely need to get these folks together. Management company, the owner of their property, and these neighbors.
We can do that. We obviously didn't have any written protests, so there's no way, we could have reached out before today. So happy to do that. Do want to point out we do have on-site management. We do have on-site security. My group took over in 2022, so but we're happy to sit down and try to find a way forward and explain what we're doing and perhaps what we could do better. So 2 weeks, Caitlin's going to get up and go give those folks her contact information, and we're going to get something set.
And I would really recommend that you take that process seriously, come attend, tell us what you have to say about things that need to improve, and let's see if there's any room for negotiation here. This is just part of what we do in these kinds of cases, to see if there's any room for improvement that we can affect through this process.
I think, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to really want to hear when we hear this again, whether it's in 2 weeks or 4, is some kind of, what's the security plan? Is there someone on site 24 hours? Are there multiple people on site 24 hours?
Yeah, this is not something that I would vote to enlarge.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
it's-
this sounds like a real issue in this neighborhood, and you know, with OKCPD being overtasked, I don't know if there's an opportunity to reach out to this station's community liaison and get them involved. But I mean, hearing what I heard, there's going to have to be a big step forward to make me get even close to thinking to supporting this application.
And I'll add, Commissioner Powers, when we were dealing with the CSU application, you did a really good job of bringing together city partners, because it's going to be it's a problem now, so we need the city to come to the table to help with the problem they're having right now, regardless of what we do with the zoning. The other thing that I would recommend is that there's a robust discussion about the buffer area and the screening, because it definitely seems totally inadequate. I'm terrified to hear about people having people jump over their fence, and I can't imagine somebody being in my pool. I mean, it's just totally unacceptable. So all of those efforts being included, I think, will be helpful.
I will just say, I wish I could take credit for the assembly of firepower on CSU, but that is something that Councilman Cooper has organized. So I will reach out to as many different people that can contribute to this process as I possibly can. And just so you know, I'm not trying to I'm not making any promises here. It's a big problem. It's a big problem right now as it stands, and so.
Understood.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with, based on what I've heard today, with all the sentiments that have been said here. The only, I do want to point out one other thing about community engagement and just the obvious of, this is a large vacant lot effectively, so it's a common area that's accessible to anyone, including people that live in the apartments, but also others. So were I going to break into a house, which I never would, I could get access to these backyards whether or not I live in these apartments, and where am I going to go when I run? I'm running through the apartments. I mean, so I just, in defense of people that rent and live in apartments, they're not all criminals breaking into homes. And the fact that we have this vacant land provides a convenient access for antisocial behaviors. So perhaps that infill development could also help address these issues. Now, with mitigating factors about setbacks and fences, I agree that's going to be a tough one to get through, but I'm willing to I wouldn't write it off 100% if with the right development.
And you think 2 weeks is going to be enough?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with continuing it at least the first time for 2 weeks. We'll see how far we get. I'm available, so.
Look how she's just back there working hard, getting names and numbers.
Yes, Ms. Lucas says something.
Yeah.
Come forward for us, please.
I just wanted to say that, to speak on something.
Could you
just said
go
about-
to the microphone, please?
Oh, I just wanted to say something in reference to what he said about security. Where was the security when it was broad daylight? When the houses were broken into, it was broad daylight. And what do? Jump over the fence and run to the apartments. So if we build more apartments to hide, they're really going to be able to get into our houses and yards. If there's more two-story apartments closer to our fence, right between that easement, they're gonna have a heyday. We're gonna have it, and then the police will be called more often because there's probably gonna be some shootings. Because we have a right to defend our land and our property. And I hate to say that, and I don't want that.
Yeah, don't say
I do not. I moved to Oklahoma too. I'm from California. My brother is a retired police chief. Believe me, I really. It's much easier here than it is in California. But a 2-story building to be able to creep in between that 2 area, and if there's security, I've never one time seen security at that apartment. Correct. Never. And so where are they? Where is security when they're jumping over the fence coming from our homes?
Let's get together and talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lucas. All right, so.
That's all right.
So, no, I think we're gonna defer the item, and it'll be heard again in 2 weeks. So we just need it, sir. Please sit down. Thank you. We just need a motion for the deferral. That's April 11th.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to defer the item until April 11th. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes.
10th.
10th, sorry.
Thank
10.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, that was the last, oh, no, excuse me, item 14.
Item 14 is case CPA 2025-1, consideration of a proposed map amendment to the comprehensive plan, removing urban future layer and changing rural low land use topology area to urban low intensity on 176.2 acres of land located on the northeast corner of Southwestern Avenue and Southwest 179th Street.
My name is Mojica Ortiz for Planning Department. This is CPA 2025-01. Their request is to leave the urban future land use typology area layer and change the rural low to urban low intensity base, LUDA designation. There you can see where is the area. It's south of KC. In terms of the LUDA, right now, in the land use I think we have a little oops with the map, but this map is actually the map for the LUDA. I don't know why the urban future is not here, the layer, I think, but it's supposed to have the urban future layer there. In terms of land use, it's undeveloped right now, the land. In terms of zoning, right now it's zoned agricultural, but it's surrounded by PUD 925, SPUD 1268, and PUD 1570. They're all for residential purposes. In terms of water, the applicant is proposing to extend city water. In terms of sanitary services, the applicant is proposing to expand the sanitary sewer. In terms of emergency services, the site is in the area longer than rural response. Go to the next one. Right now, we have an agreement with Norman for emergency services, for the response agreement with the Norman Fire Department. It's important to mention that because this area is south of the city and is by the border of the city, we don't believe there is any other fire station that is going to get built closer to that area. Instead of streets, it's surrounded by major and minor arterials and some neighborhood streets. And it's important to mention too that the new route for the proposed turnpike is just going to run south of this site. The findings, the applicant is proposing to extend city water and sewer services. The area is covered by an automatic aid agreement between the City of Oklahoma City Fire Department and the City of Norman Fire Department. And due to the proximity to the city borders, there are not expectation of changes in the level of emergency services in the area. Based on the findings above, the staff recommends approval. I don't know if you have any other questions.
Any questions? I do have one person signed up to speak. Want to hear from? Okay. It's not David.
As our speaker is coming, I know we have a neighbor coming.
Yeah, Ms. Heather Anson.
As our neighbors aren't making their way. Now we have no authority over the Turnpike Authority and what they're going to do. And no decision that we make here impacts what the Turnpike Authority is going to do, correct? Legal's saying this? I just want to be clear.
Been there, done that. Totally understand. All right, so my name is Heather. This is my husband, Ryan. We've lived there for about 10 years, a little bit over 10.
Over 11.
Years. We have two sons, one that graduated from Southmore High School, one that's in there right now. The older son is now at OU. We're vested in this house. We're obviously paying college tuition, so we're broke all the time. But we were told when we bought this house that that land behind us was agricultural land and that it was not going to be built upon. And in fact, that builder and other builders told everybody along there. In fact, we had a couple neighbors here that were told, today's not really a day that you're going to talk or whatever, and so they left. But they will tell you the same thing that I'm going to tell you, that that was a selling point to those homes, and they only built our back fence 4 foot. I know both my sons could take a run and take a jump over it and have no problem at all because I've seen them do it. So you talk about security and that kind of thing. They've had people out there already cleaning up and doing whatever, and they go right past, we're eye to eye when they go past these with these huge machines and things at all times of the day. So I am concerned, number one, for safety and that kind of thing. Also, that is one of the most crowded areas that I remember being in Oklahoma in a long time. I don't know if you guys have ever been on 19th Street. Over kind of like where they have apartments, they have businesses, they have Hideaway Pizza. There is an accident almost every single day. That's where our grocery stores are, that's where the gas stations are, that's where the retail shops are, and there is accident after accident. They're already doing all kinds of rezoning with the roads and everything where there's construction. They have complete turn lanes blocked off. There's no way to get around, so people are causing accidents. Just the other day, our neighborhood, we have 2 brick entryway like gates, and a high school student drove head on into it, wrecked his truck because there's too much traffic, and he was trying to go too fast in between all the traffic and couldn't get in. People are going through our neighborhood because there's in and outs on both sides of the neighborhood and all those neighborhood areas there. So instead of getting on the crowded roads where there's tons of schools, they go through the neighborhoods. They've almost hit children. My son's car was sideswiped just the other day because it was parked on the side. There's too many people. They're putting apartments in there, they're putting businesses in there, and they're putting 500 homes. And not only that, they're backing it right up to our fence. It's going to be attached to our 4-foot fence. So for us to build a fence that makes any sense at all, it's gonna have to be 6 to 8 feet. And our whole back, what would you say that size is on that back fence?
120 feet long.
So you do the math with the lumber prices and what's going on right now, how much money we're gonna have to spend with a kid in college. We weren't expecting this. It's overcrowded as is. We've seen too many accidents. We could have a whole list of people if you wanted to come in here and tell you how overcrowded it is. Not only that, but our sons that went to that school, we've seen a dip because they keep building multi-family homes off of 19th. So we've seen a dip when my son went there and graduated, my older one, to now. My son told me the other day that there was a fight at the high school because it's overcrowded, there's not enough teachers, and it's a mess. There was a fight that went on forever. People were filming it. It was all over the place. And it was because they don't have enough staff to control what's going on in that school. That school is less than a mile from our home.
Half a mile.
Yeah. So, I mean, the car break-ins, it's ridiculous. We can bring camera footage if you like. Our neighbors can bring, the ones that were here can bring camera footage of just people walking around at 2 a.m., going in and opening, jiggling car handles and all kinds of stuff. So I don't feel safe. I feel like it's a threat. It's an overcrowding. People are going to get in more accidents. I feel like the schools can't take it right now. That's too much. 500 houses, multi-housing, all of that, and then businesses on top of it. And there's already businesses being built right across the street right now as we speak. We don't even know what they're going to be. You talk about like horrible shops, like sex shops or, you know, weed shops or whatever. I don't want that around my sons. I didn't sign up for that. And Unfortunately, we're getting overrun. Probably 2 miles from our house, there's how many weed shops?
Too many.
Too many. Enough's enough. That's all I had to say. Ryan, did you want to say anything?
I would just also bring up the area has been, we are out there regularly and we see lots of wild animals. Has there been a study on this? Like, I have pictures from this last week of wild turkeys and a coyote. We see snakes, we see deer, we see all of this all the time. So is that impact being at all looked at on what it will cause that and the surrounding areas? So anyway, Heather laid it out very well, so that was mainly our points.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. and Mrs. Anson? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Could you go back a couple slides? David Box, there we go. 525 Northwest 11th. So it's worth noting that the subject site, I think what she was describing is 19th Street and Moore, which of course is a mess, which is at least 2 miles, if not 3 miles away from our site. And if you look at immediately east of our site, it's a high-density single-family neighborhood. The red line you see is why we're here and why this entire area is about to fundamentally change in what it has been and what it will be. My client owns both sides of Indian Hills. There are similar efforts going on within the city of Norman, but the turnpike with access roads is going to be on our southern line. If you think about Oklahoma City up north where the Kilpatrick Turnpike is and Memorial Road, it's no different than that, say, in the 70s or 80s. It was farmland, 2-lane roads. Now look at it, it is a turnpike with Memorial as an access road with massive medical facilities and restaurants and apartments and hotels. As Commissioner Pennington said, no one in this room, no one at the city level has the ability to change the turnpike's mind. The turnpike is going here. I represent several clients along this stretch on Indian Hills. They are making offers, and that's where it's going to be. So we're simply trying to react to what the market will be. There's water, there's sewer. One of the things that we've debated multiple times in here has been this idea of when you're on the periphery, specifically up north around Piedmont, in the mutual aid agreement. Well, this one is different. This is an automatic aid agreement. Rather than mutual aid, this is the automatic aid. So by contract, Norman has to respond, unlike what happens oftentimes up in the Piedmont area. So with that in place, we then check all the boxes for what, of course, this is just the comp plan change. We've deferred the PUD, we've deferred the plat. We already have a neighborhood meeting scheduled next week where we'll go talk about all the things that we heard today. I can't help deer and turkey and coyotes being displaced. That is just a natural part of development. But density and setbacks and fencing and those things, absolutely we can talk about and try to find a way in the PUD to come up with a solution. So we would ask that you move forward with the comprehensive plan amendment. Whatever we need to do and however long it takes on the PUD, we'll put forth the effort.
Commissioner Newman, this is Ward 5. Do you have anything to add?
I'm very familiar with this. It's about 2 miles from my house. I looked at this particular piece of property, and as I think some of you guys know, I'm not real big sometimes on comp plan amendment changes, but in this particular case, with the trends that are happening in that area and the things that apparently are going to happen in that area, I don't have any objection to making this change. I think it's an appropriate change, given all the things that are going on, and I'm in support of it.
Okay. Anything else from other commissioners?
I'll just say that I empathize with our neighbors who are here. I'm sorry. There's been a long discussion among us on the Planning Commission about the fact that there are some property owners and developers that just are not honest with people in the fact that they can't control what the zoning is going to be for vacant land nearby you, and yet they still make these promises that people rely on, and I think that's wrong. And I wish it was illegal and there was a way to stop it, because it gives people false expectations for how their neighborhood is going to develop. And so I empathize with you. Unfortunately, our review is about the conditions on the ground currently and the future of the development, and what they're asking to do is consistent with the expectation in those plans. But I know that that is not a comfort when this is your home, you take it seriously, and so I'm very sorry. I think it's just unfortunate, and I wish there were easier answers for this, but it happens a lot here in Oklahoma City.
Would I be able to say one more thing and be done?
Yes.
This one works too, right?
Yes.
All right. One thing I would like for you to keep in mind is that these are people's homes. And the one woman who left, who was here, she said, we just paid it off this year. And she's like, we don't want to move. Like, this is our house. So when you're building right up against my fence, I'd appreciate if you had some space between my fence and the fence of whoever you're building for, and maybe put some trees. Have a little bit of respect for the people that have been there and been lied to, and that's their home. Don't butt up right to our fence. Like, we're gonna have to spend $15,000 to put in a fence so that we don't have to stare at other people or construction for 3 years. At least have a little respect. That's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. I think we're just ready for a motion.
Okay. To address your comment real quickly, once we get into the PUD, assuming they move forward with this, that's when we'll be able to address the things that you're talking about on that specific level in terms of fencing and boundaries and setbacks. So we just haven't got to that point yet, assuming they do move forward with the PUD. This is just a change of the overlay that allows development of this area. So with that in mind, I would like to make a motion to approve CPA 2025-01.
So we have a motion to recommend to City Council. Oh, we are, approve it. We have a motion to approve CPA 2025-01.
Oh, it's me.
And that's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes.
The second button is not working on my computer. So can we see if it's not working, the second?
It is, you're just slow.
I'm just wondering if they can fix that.
All right, and that is approved. That was the last item to be heard. We're on to additional items in communications and reports. Planning Commission committees. Anything? No? Planning Commission members.
Yeah, I do think that we need to give some thought to whether there is a path forward on notice for specific plans, whether it's a good idea, whether it's a bad idea, if it's a good idea, what it would take to make it happen, how it would work, what it would cost, et cetera, et cetera. I think it is a loophole you can drive a Mack truck through, that we go through this process, there's a lot of negotiation and discussion, and then at some point in the future,
Right.
we have these specific plans that come to us, and, people aren't even aware, so.
Right, I mean, it's a form of assurance that we let neighbors know that when they have a concern that, oh, we're gonna get to review this again. And so they leave with that in mind, and then they never find out that it has come back to us.
And sometimes it's years,
Yeah.
and I understand that there are issues, so I want to explore that, but I just think it's something we need to talk about and think about.
I mean, one of the points to talk about, I think, with that too is how to manage expectations of what the specific plan conversation and discussion is meant to focus on, because at that point we've already mitigated to the extent possible on the oval to get the TEs and whatever changes in, and the specific plan just is basically we're making sure that they're doing what they said they're going to do, not rehearing all the same complaints about traffic or other things. But I'm sure that's easy enough to do. Just explain that, I guess. But I do agree that people should have the opportunity to see that just like we do. That's why we like specific plans.
Okay. Commissioner Meek? Nothing? Commissioner Privet? Commissioner Newman? All right. Commissioner Govine?
Nothing.
All right. Commissioner Pennington?
There was a great story in Non-Doc about the ADU ordinance, and I would encourage everyone to read it. I thought it was pretty comprehensive. I think it was a good look at what we've been doing and the other options that are being considered at the council now that it's no longer our problem. I think I missed the meeting where we officially disbanded the ADU task force of the Planning Commission, which I'm very excited about. So even though I love the people, it was a great meeting.
There was no formal ceremony.
We
so-
probably should have had one. The longest, ad hoc committee of all time. But anyway, worth a read.
Okay.
Okay, let's hope. Fingers crossed.
Commissioner Noble? Commissioner LaForge?
Oh, just Commissioner Pennington better be careful, knock on wood, or it will come back to us. Or
yeah, don't jinx it.
You'll be on the council, or you'll be on the council and get to handle it.
All right. Planning Department?
I did want to mention, so the 2025 general obligation bond package is, I guess, getting very close to being packaged. So if you all could reserve I think it's April 22nd, the second Planning Commission in April for a study session, that would be wonderful. We have a kind of a set timeline. So if we can make that, that would be great. We're trying to wrap everything up so that we can get, it may not be completely final by that time, but it'll be really close. What that would do is allow you to see in a study session and have a little more time between then and when you actually take action on the motion, which would be in May. So yeah, that's something that we do every 8 to 10 years. It's a big deal. The Planning Commission by state law needs to approve of big things like this. What it allows you to do, and we bring the capital improvement plan like every other year or so. I think it's every second year, every third year. Anyway, whatever it is, to the Planning Commission. But in the CIP, a lot of these items are already funded, and this is the opportunity now for the Planning Commission to review something before it actually gets approved and funded, to have input on. So I just wanted to make you aware of that and get that on. We'll send out an invitation so it's on your calendar, but that'll be an important study session. They're all important, but that'll be a key one that only happens every decade or so. And of course, the following item to approve the bond package. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Will there be a packet, like an agenda packet that could be emailed out after before or after the study session?
As soon as we get something,
get information,
yeah, we'll get it in your hands. There's the packaging. There's still some decisions that have to be made and discussions with council members, and then it'll be kind of ready to bring forward. But as soon as we can, we'll get it to you.
Okay.
I'll send
Municipal
my,
Counselor's Office.
yeah,
Nothing.
Send my demands in.
Citizens to be heard. Any other business? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Wait, we didn't hear from Barry.
Barry.
Oh.